Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we're diving back into Etherfields for this Kickstarter preview, and this is part number 4. Now there's a couple things I want to talk about from the last video in order to help clarify some things that happened. I got some great feedback along the way, also added that feedback and some of those things that I missed in the pinned comment of the last video, so you'll definitely want to check that out to help get some clarity on some of the things you may have spotted from that prior video. The first thing to make mention of is this card right here, which is flipped face down. This one has a universal marker on it because this is analysis. This is a card that really helped us out in the last video, but it says at the very bottom to discard when the scene ends. So when we finished our random encounter as well as a regular scene, either way, this card gets discarded. So it would have actually landed right here. And then once we came out of that random encounter, we later on ran into a card called Home Sweet Home, which allowed us to reshuffle our deck, discard cards back into our deck. And so this card should actually be shuffled back inside of this deck going into this new video. The next correction that I want to make is in regard to the Fear Specters, and this right here. Now in the prior video, I made it seem as though every single time I killed one of these Fear Specters, I was able to heal one for my character and buy new cards, when actually I had to actually kill all 3 of the Specters by either doing it through communication or injuries in order to gain it 1 time as a bonus. So essentially I healed myself a total of 3 times when I really should have only been able to heal myself once. So what we're going to be doing in order to balance that out is I will be grabbing 2 more pain tokens, which are going to be coming my way to go onto my character, bringing my total pain up to 4 currently. And then on top of that, in terms of the buying of cards, that's something I can't go back and change. But the good news is I would have gained the same amount of ether that I did, but I only would have been able to pick from a handful of 3 cards that I picked from when I spent all the ether that I gathered from killing these Fear Specters, unlike what I did in the previous video, which was basically every time I killed one, I had the ability to take a look at 3 cards and pick a card to purchase that was 1 ether. So essentially you got to see a lot more cards than what normally you would be able to do in that particular random encounter. Hopefully that makes sense, but it says it right here, reward for killing all the Specters. You get your 1 heal and you can buy cards once over. With those clarifications out of the way, we're now going to dive into the library, and this is an underground location. You can see here on the tile that we are definitely missing an R here, so that will be corrected in the final version, and this is still in and within chapter number 3. The very first thing we're supposed to do when we enter is to take tiles 544, so that's all the tiles that relate to that number from the secret tiles deck, place them in the grid quadrants that are mentioned on the back of the tiles. If any don't have a grid quadrant, then we just put them off to the side, but they're still right in there. If you notice at the very beginning of this video, that was the first scene or shot that you saw, was all of those tiles laid out in place. Next, we're going to find the cards 194, and there's multiple of them within the secret card deck, pulling those out to get ready for the library. And as a reward, if we happen to succeed in the library, we are going to gain a key, an all-important key. And if we lose, we're just going to be resetting this location.
A labyrinth of huge rooms, floors, and stairs, and instead of walls, endless shelves with books. In these forgotten books, stories of the lives of forgotten people were recorded. Their lives have been extinguished long ago without any stigma in the world. However, for the authors themselves, it was all that extraordinary. By reading them, you could live 1,000,000 lives, incomparable to anything but inconspicuous stories. There is also your book somewhere, though not finished yet. Does anyone watch this place?
So this scene that we're moving into is a total of 8 turns, but being that we're playing solo, we're going to get an additional 3 turns out of that for 11 turns. Our goal is to go through the gates, and we'll be uncovering and adventuring through the library to find these gates. Now, as an action, we can choose to read a book by choosing 1 card from the books pool 194 by looking only at the card backs. We resolve the front of the chosen book that we have selected from this 194 pile of books in the library, and after we resolve the card, we then roll a fate die. On a 1 to 3, so a 1, 2, or 3, we then disable this ability or action. So read a book becomes disabled unless there are already 3 blocked. Now this will make a lot more sense once we actually get into the library. And the next thing we have to take note of is the fact that if we see this red paw symbol at the very bottom, we are going to resolve the current action of the librarian. In addition to the setup for the library, I also mentioned just a little bit ago about suffering cards. There are specific ones for this scene called Oblivion. So we know that at some point in time, something regarding suffering could occur. And if it does, we'll be going after Oblivion cards from this particular deck, which could find themselves inside of our own deck, causing us some harm. And they're going to be tailored towards this library scenario. And the last step of setup is to get 11 turn counter cards in a deck to the right of the turn counter deck, facing up, and we're ready to begin the library scene. So now we are at the beginning of our very first turn, and the first thing you do is focus on the tiles that are face down. We're looking for everything that states turn number 1. You can see there are 5 of these tiles that are actually with a quadrant in the top left-hand corner. One of them over here does not have anything, but does say turn number 1. And that's what you're looking for, as we know from the prior scene we completed. Turn 1, we flip all of those face up. So that's going to be this one right here, and these 2 right here. You also notice for the first time, we've got turn 2 tiles in here. Those will be revealed and flipped up only when the second turn begins. To remind ourselves of this, we're going to place this turn 2 marker right on top of this turn counter deck, and that'll help us to remind ourselves to flip those up at the beginning of the next turn. So without further ado, let's flip these tiles over and see what we have for the library. So here's the very first tile, and don't worry, once I reveal these tiles, I will go a little closer up for you guys so you can see the detail on them. And this is the second tile to be revealed in the first turn, like so. And then last, but certainly not least, is the one disconnected from the rest of the scene, as it doesn't have any grid quadrant assigned to it. This one is, wouldn't you know it, the librarian himself. All right, so here's a little bit closer up view of these 2 tiles revealed for us in the library. Now let's talk about some of the things going on here. So first off, way over here in the top left-hand corner, we have what says a library plan hangs on the wall. For 6 contact, we can add the 544 tile. So that's kind of intriguing. We also have our starting spots here for our characters. Now I know personally, I do really want to figure out what that thing is way over on the far left before I start venturing off to the right. So I think my miniature or my character, the specialist, is going to start right here. And I know that movement's not really an issue for my character, being that I am a ghost, so I can move myself quite quickly if I need to. So I'm still happy to kind of explore this. But this over here also looks really important. This says the library computer, and we for 6 contact or 6 false, after you go through the gates, each character will gain 1 new random card, and then we mark with a universal marker. We can also draw an additional 2 cards when we start our turn on this space. One other thing to remember is when I go ahead and draw my first hand of up to 5 cards to start off this, we are going to go ahead and utilize the strategic plan card from our items, which we can do saying that each character draws 2 cards more at the start of each scene. So I will definitely be going and drawing up to 7 to give us a lot to work with from the beginning. The other things on these tiles that are worth mentioning are these stair icons. I mentioned them in prior videos. They have no meaning whatsoever until the game gives them meaning, but I'm sure that is going to happen here. And then we've got the night symbol in the middle of this section, so any of these 4 areas here are in night. These red blocked areas, essentially you can't move into them. You have to go around them. They're just completely blocked off. And this is the entity that appears to be governing this library for who knows what reason exactly just yet. But one thing that I did notice the second I flipped this thing over was from our wisdom card signs, which we got way earlier on, we have a particular picture or piece of a picture which matches something on this librarian's tile in the art. You can see here the books match. So I'm able at this point in time to flip this over and gain whatever's on the opposite side. In this case, it's 2 ether. So now we have a total of 2 additional ether being added to the 1 which I already had for 3, which is fantastic, meaning that we'll have more options for purchasing cards at a later time. Now let's take a look more closely at what this librarian is going to be doing to us as we deal with the library scene here. So the very, very top left, you can see that injuries are the only way we're going to be able to affect this librarian, and there's nothing about killing it here. We're really just mitigating its presence in this library, and you can see it has that three-headed icon right here next to the 2 injury blood mark. What that means is based on the number of characters, as I mentioned in prior videos, and this is how the game automatically scales for the number of players without having to deal with a ton of additional rules for solo play, which I really enjoy. So you're really just timesing it by the number of players, so 2 times 1 is 2, so it just remains as stated there. But if we had more people, that would obviously increase exponentially. So we can try to mislead this librarian. We can discard the action marker when we do from the librarian. That seems really useful because it'll stop it from doing all these different AI mechanisms here listed below. So when this thing does get dashed movement using the movement die, it's going to move a total of 3 spaces. On the very first spot here, if it gets a single pip, each character in range 3 is going to flip 1 active card and suffer pain, and then this librarian is going to move. The second one there with the second pip says roll the move die. Each character in a night space or dark space or in range 1 is going to suffer a pain and flip a card. In this third pip option here, it says to roll the move die, and each character in a night space or in range 1 is going to suffer 2 pain or get the Oblivion Suffering card, and that's where we staged those cards earlier. They will be going into our deck if that occurs. And then the fourth one right here says each character flip 1 card and suffer a pain, and then of course we've got our random option at the bottom. Now we know from our time counter setup that we had a 3 pip icon show up, so immediately we can go ahead and place the marker on this 3 pip section of the AI track. Another thing to note is the writing on the librarian card. You'll notice at the bottom right it says, do you have permission? These secrets are not for every eyes. And in even smaller font down there at the bottom it says, I will never let you read your way out of here. So that's extremely ominous and creepy. The librarian tile also has this silver dot in the top right hand corner, denoting the fact that we are going to be putting a miniature into play. We thought that the coast was clear until we saw the librarian approaching us from the top of the stairwell. So now it's time to draw our cards for the beginning of this library scene, and I'm absolutely using this item that we have had equipped going into this one, Strategic Plan. Have each character drawing an additional 2 cards more at the start of each scene. So that we're doing that right now. It's only a one-time use because we're only doing it at the very beginning. So I'm going to be able to pick up 7 cards at the start here. So we'll start off with the very first card, and we got ourselves Inner Light. This is actually a fantastic card to get, and I kid you not, I shuffled this deck multiple times. I had absolutely no idea what was coming, but this is perfect because I do remember in the prior video there was one individual who mentioned, hey, you should take a closer look at some of the cards in your hand. You might not be noticing that there is a sign in amongst them, and guess what? This is that card, and it actually does match one of the signs that we have, meaning we can instantly claim it. And this is really cool because I had no idea that these signs could actually be found in your decks as well. I thought it was just on the tiles or the environment that you're exploring. So it's another whole aspect to keep in mind as you go through this, to always be paying attention. So flipping this over, what does it do? It does a lot. That's awesome. We actually got ourselves that those green plus symbols essentially mean healing, so we can heal away 2 of our pain going into this, which is massive, knowing that we were going in with 4, and when we hit 7, well, things just go south for us, so that really helps us out. And then on top of it, we actually gain an additional ether, which is going to help us out when we get to the deck building portion. This is probably the most ether we've been carrying through this entire playthrough thus far. So why don't we continue drawing up our hand to see what else we get. We got more contact, and we know this is great because contact is very heavily used in this scenario, at least in the first couple tiles that we've revealed. So the more green, the better. And I am on a roll, but I'm probably going to end up getting all the... Oh my goodness, this is insane. So this is so good. Let's just keep on going. Oh my, pocket ladders there as well. So there's our 5. We're going to get our 2 additional cards on top of it. We got very long hands, and we also get... another, wow, we really hit the jackpot on the contact and the fate, which is absolutely perfect for this opening situation in the library. First play of the game is going to be Inner Light, placed in the active area. Because this thing allows me for 2 contact to ignore darkness, it'll be really handy in the library. I've seen darkness on one tile, not the one I'm currently in though, but I can tell that this is probably going to be useful going forward, especially when the AI of the librarian messes with characters that are sitting in that night or darkness area. So I'm definitely going to put that in the active slot, which will help me. Next up, what we're going to do is get some movement going. So I'm going to use my actual power token here, flip this over. This is going to give me the 1 movement I need to get to that spot I wanted to go on the 1 space away from where I am, in order to essentially take a look at some plan on the library wall. And then in order to interact with that plan, I need to use 6 contact. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to spend 6 contact, throwing all of this in the discard pile in order to interact with it. So with my 1 yellow resource that I spend on my power token, I can now move 1 space right to here. I use 6 contact, and now I can add tile 544. Now look what I just opened up. It looks to be a cellar, and there's some options here. We've got stairs coming down from behind where the librarian currently is. So in order to get over here, I'm gonna have to run around up through the stairwell, back down this stairwell, over to the cellar, which is currently completely in darkness. But there is a light switch in the bottom left, which I can universally mark if I pay 3 contact to switch on. So at least the darkness won't mess with me there, and I won't need my inner light in that spot. There's also the ability to use 9 false to actually get out of this scene completely if things are going south and I don't want to be there. Again, there is a magnifying glass in the bottom right hand corner. I haven't in this prototype seen any use for it yet. Hasn't have any rules behind it that makes use of it, but I'm sure something pops up through game mechanics, something could occur there. The one thing that I did notice the second I put this thing down is another wisdom sign for these actual stairs themselves, as you can see, like that. So we can flip this over and it's going to give me another ether and a new card 224. Check out this card that I just picked up. It's called Stairs, and it's going to have 2 false icons on it for 4 false. From now on, moving to each staircase space is free for you, and we can mark this. So at some point in time, my guess is that the game is going to change in the way in which we can move through staircases. Maybe the staircases start collapsing or disappearing within the dream itself, and this is the way in which we can move through them at a quicker pace. So this card, actually being that I gained it, is going to go straight into my hand. Certainly useful. So now I want to be smart in terms of how I set myself up for next turn, because again, I want to stay away from ranged attacks from this librarian. Plus, I don't really want to be in darkness, but I also want to make sure that I can actually draw up as many cards as possible so that I can try to accomplish as much as possible in the upcoming turns. And the fact that I'm able to use 3 false together to enact my ghost ability, which allow me to basically jump anywhere in the library, really helps out. So holding on to some of the stuff is great. I'm going to take the stairs and absolutely put this in the active slot, because I'd like to try to get this and work my way up to it, which I really could almost do right now. But until I know that the stairs are going to become a problem for me, I'm not going to worry about actually trying to get that marked, although I can kind of sense it's coming. And then the other one that I can put in there to maximize my full row of 5 is going to be Very Long Hand. So I'll place that in here. As of right now, we don't have any reason to be fighting anything at distance, but it still just gets those cards out of my hand. I can still use them as resources. And then I just have 2 cards in hand, meaning I can draw up to 3 going into the next turn. Okay, so it's time for the librarian to react to us during this first turn. It's going to roll the movement die. We'll find out how far it's going to go. And oh, look at that. It doesn't get a dash movement. That's perfect. So it's only going to move 1 space closer to us. So the librarian definitely knows that we're here and is moving slowly down the stairs towards us. And lastly, each character in a darkness space or in range 1 of the librarian is going to suffer 2 pain or choose to get an Oblivion Suffering card. Both of those sound like terrible options, and thankfully I'm not in darkness and I'm also not within range 1. And now we finish up turn number 1, and we have a reminder here. We're going to be flipping over some tiles at the beginning of this second turn. First, we'll remove 1 card from the deck, and look at that. We still have the 3rd pip one showing up, which is going to leave the AI tracker exactly where it sits currently. And now we're going to go ahead and reveal some more parts of the library, and I'm really not looking forward to this. I kind of am, but I'm kind of reserved in my excitement because I have no idea what this is going to throw in terms of a wrench into things. So here we go, turn number 2. We're revealing next parts of the library. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is saying on it, this old floor will collapse soon. It has an area here that is impossible to move through. Oh, look at that. that? Isn't that nasty? So the way that these red blocked areas are situated, remember, I can't move diagonal into that other area, so that's really going to cause me to have to go towards the librarian, which is unfortunate. I can't just kind of skirt around him. But we got some things over here we'll talk about for sure. We'll also reveal this one over on this side to see what we find. And this one says, so dark. So this whole side of the library is completely in darkness, including the tile that I already pulled already. So you can think things have really filled out now. And we're going to zoom in on these two tiles, talk about what we're seeing here. So on tile 1A, way up in the top left-hand corner, we have the read a book action. And this one here says that we can spend 3 contact in this particular space to do that read a book action that was actually detailed on the library card. Remember that one that had us choosing one of the books from the 194 pile of 8 books? Well, that's where we would go to try to read one of those books. And we're trying to find a way to get into a gate that'll get us out of here, essentially to win. So that obviously is important. We have another space down here that says for 6 contact we can also read a book. We have the red square right here that I noted earlier is going to really screw up my movement, being that I can't move diagonally into this area. I'll have to take the long way around, meaning I have to go up the stairs and then traverse all the way to the very back. So I'm kind of going the long way around to get to the best option for spending the least amount of contact. Over here, we also have open a cabinet. This is very interesting. So you can either use 4 false, 6 contact, or 8 wrath to open the cabinet. And then we're going to be grabbing, it looks like 249, which looks to be a regular card, but from the secrets deck. So that seems interesting. Another symbol you're seeing here is this red paw. We talked about this earlier. Not only was that in the cellar that we showed earlier, but it's also here as well. And essentially any time that the librarian happens to land on that space while it's moving around, you immediately resolve the current action of the librarian. So it's almost like it's re-triggering what it's going to do, which really is nasty. So it's moving around doing its thing, but it's also going to get extra pain thrown our way when it hits those particular spots. We'll talk about it when it actually happens. Now let's move over to tile A2. But just before we do, another sign has appeared. That's right, we've got another wisdom card sign that showed up and matches, so we're able to reveal this right now, and it is going to give us another ether and a new item. So we are currently swimming in ether. We have a total of 6 at the moment. Tile A2 is certainly interesting. It connects in and actually is the entranceway going up these stairs right here into this doorway to get into A1. So as I mentioned before, we had to wrap around, going up the stairs where the librarian is to this platform here, and then going into this stairwell up to this door and through to A1 in order to go to that cheapest read a book option for 3 contact. There is the ability though for 4 contact to read a book in here. There's a couple little bits of writing as well. This one over here says, knowledge always changes, your old self will die. Are you ready for it? And then on the far left here it says, so dark. Now both of these tiles are completely in darkness, as you can see from the icons in the middle. It also states in writing over here, it says, this old floor will collapse soon. And over here it says, but it creaks. So again, there's always writing, pictures, artwork. You want to take all of that stuff in to account as you journey through these scenes. Time to move into our next turn of the game. We have 2 cards in hand. I'm going to draw up to a total of 5 cards in hand. I could stop at any time on the way up to 5, but I'm going to try to grab as many as I can to be as productive as possible. That's a good one. So it allows us to use many different options. We have another one allowing us for multiple options. And finally, perfect. We've got so much movement potential going on here. We could really use our ghost ability if we wanted to. Now inside my active area, just down here, I've had these 2 cards flip face down since the start of this scene, and I want to do something about that so they're not just clogging up spaces in my active card row. This one here, if again I spend 2 contact, I'll be able to flip these cards and be able to use them, but I can also choose to discard them if I don't want them sitting in my active area. But dodge is really useful, so if I could ever at some point spend that 2 contact on the other side in order to flip this over, I get the ability to start being able to try to dodge, which means I could actually ignore pain, knowing full well the librarian is going to be trying to hurt me. So this is one I'd like to keep face down in this area, but this one right here is actually in relation to wrath, and we know we're not going to be doing any kind of push for damage, at least from what I can tell with this particular librarian, at least yet. And so because of that, I don't want to clog up spots in my active area with this card at the moment. And the majority of the cards that are sitting in my active slots are yellow or green, so this really reduces the use of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and discard this to open up on a slot for me going forward. And of course, we don't want to forget about the fact that we can try to inflict wounds on this thing in order to get 2 wounds that will remove this AI marker, stopping it from activating on its turn. But as of right now, I'm not as worried based on the fact that it's pretty far from me, and I should be able to use my ghost ability to keep distance for the time being. So I'm really intrigued by these 2 options in the top left-hand corner of A1. You've got read a book up here for 3 green contact. We know we want to progress this story through the library by trying to read books to find our way out of here, because we're trying to find gates to get out. We also have this ability over here, if we go over on this side and use 4 false, 6 contact, or 8 wrath to open a cabinet, and then we get to reveal a secret card. That is also pulling me quite strongly. Again, I want to interact with that probably as early as I can, because there's a red paw on that, and that means once the librarian lands in that space, it's going to resolve a current action of the librarian, which is going to be painful for me if I'm nearby. So I'd rather kind of hop over there and interact with that as fast as I can, and the librarian is 1, 2, 3 spaces away, so I might be able to go over there, interact, and then move further away. So maybe I'm over here instead. So let's go ahead with that mindset and see how it goes. So I'm going to spend this movement card right here for 2 movement. I'm also going to flip over my power token for the additional movement to get me the 3 I need. That card I use goes in the discard pile, and we are going to move 3. So because I went ahead and spent 3 in a single move action, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to activate my ghost ability to teleport me or transport me all the way over here. And now I'm sitting right next to that cabinet, and I'm going to try to interact with this thing. And honestly, with the amount of yellow that I have in my hand, which is quite a bit, I'm going to try to open this cabinet up. So let's go ahead and use these as my 4 in terms of the false that I need in order to open up this cabinet. So those 3 cards, I should say, are discarded. I still have 1 card in hand, which gives me some options across multiple resources. So now we're going to go grab the secret card 249 as we open up the cabinet in the library. Now check this tile out. This is pretty awesome. It says, if you are on this space, you can ignore the librarian's actions. So it actually covered up and eliminated that paw print that was sitting on the map, meaning that the librarian will no longer activate here. Plus, when I'm here, I'm actually safe from the librarian's actions as well. So we found ourselves like a secret hole in the ground, or a hidden space that we can kind of hide inside of, which is really, really useful for moving around and avoiding nasty attacks. So that cabinet certainly helped us out in keeping ourselves far away from and out of harm's way of this librarian. I have 1 card left in my hand. I have no need to worry about darkness at all during this turn, or any kind of attack coming from the librarian, being that I'm staying in this space. I was planning on moving over to the read a book space to be ready for next turn, but I've got a comfortable position right now. There's no reason to leave. So I will stop with this card in hand. I cannot put this in an active slot anyway, even though I have space for 1. So we're going to end my character's turn right there. So just like that, this librarian AI tracker can come right off the card because nothing will happen. And it's really cool and thematic that way, because really there's no way that the librarian even knows that I went inside of this cabinet and found a hidden spot in order to hide. So it can't move towards me, it can't try to attack me, and I'm of course out of night as well, which is awesome. So it really, really helped me out there for the end of my turn. And of course we're going to move the turn counter next. So I'm going to remove a card from the top of the deck. We'll see what we get, and look at that. We've got ourselves a random coming up for the AI, which is going to throw a wrench into things, unless of course we can throw 2 injuries at it. So we go ahead here with the next turn, and we want to keep our focus on the fact of trying to read those books, what we have not done yet. So I'm going to make that an aim of this turn. Of course, we need to draw up. We have 1 card in hand, 4 in the active slot. So at max for my hand, I can draw an additional 4, up to 4 more cards. And I'm going to do that because I want to be a little more productive during this turn. And so far I have kind of been pushing it in terms of drawing cards. I've wanted to get as many as I can. We got Smarty here. We can discard this one to draw that number of active yellow cards. That could be actually really good for us as well, to put that in an active slot. And we got this one here, rapid action card, 2 different resources on it. And finally, another fate. So we got a little bit to work with there, and we are just 1 shy in our hand, at least in terms of interacting with the book, but we could always use Inner Light for its resources. And of course, we also don't want to forget to activate or reactivate our power token. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the power token that we just activated for the beginning of our turn, and we're going to deactivate it in order to spend 1 false, and that's going to allow me to move from where I currently am here into this spot right here so I can start trying to read a book. Now currently, as I mentioned, I only have 2 green contact in my hand right now. I don't have anything to allow me to change that out, but I do have inner light currently sitting in my area, but I also could technically risk it, use the luck die to try to get that last resource, but I'm not really willing to take any additional pain that I don't have to, knowing full well that this guy can actually hit me for 2 pain at a time. That could really start adding up fast. So I'm going to actually spend inner light, and I'm going to be using this now passage that I found to keep me in the safe area as much as possible, even if I have to spend movement and use my ghost ability to get there. I don't need this one as much, so I'll use it for its 2 resources up top, and then I'm going to take 1 green contact from my hand. So this one's spent from my active area for resources. It's discarded for 2. And this one right here is a rapid action card from my hand, using it for 1 green contact for a total of 3. So now we can go ahead and read a book. And we'll grab those cards, lay them out, and we're going to go ahead and choose a book to read from the library. So here are the books in the library that we can choose to read from, and we literally get to pick just one of these based on the front cover of the book. We get to flip it over and we get to check it out to see whether it's something that's going to help us. And then at that point, we're going to be rolling a fate die as well. So let's go ahead and pick one of these. Now, I would normally just choose one based on the titles of the book. Some of them are specific, like Palace of a Thousand Stairs or The Book of Water or Spooky Night, but there's some other generic ones like other books that are just in here, and you have no idea what exactly you're going to get when you pull those ones. So for the very first one, and maybe for the first few, I'm just going to do it randomly because it sounds like fun. We actually don't exactly know what we're going to get anyway. There are hints, because obviously the Book of Water would make it sound like water could show itself in this particular scene. A Palace of a Thousand Stairs potentially could impact the stairs. Remember, we had that kind of thought process, or at least I did, when I saw the stairs showing up with all the icons everywhere. I was thinking maybe at some point in time we might get something that would harm us when we're actually traveling through stairs. So maybe that's one we don't want to flip, and that's kind of part of the fun, is trying to hash out those thoughts and make a wise decision. But in this case, doing a playthrough for you on video, I'm going to roll the die, the fate die in fact, and let it decide my fate. So here we go. A 3. Oh, we landed on the Book of Water. So I was doing 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way across, as you normally would. So Book of Water 194. What do we got? Oh my. All right, so the Book of Water. This is an item. Interesting. Okay, so we can use this for its resource of 2, and at the top we want to spend it for contact, which you guys can see now a little more clearly right here. And what we can do on the bottom, if we use it as an item, we can spend 2 contact to put water token on the space we stand in, or we can spend 4 contact, and if you stand on water space, you dive and you enter into 880. So that's crazy. We can actually drop some water, dive in, and see where it takes us. That sounds really cool and also terrifying at the same time. So let's go ahead and we'll place this in an item slot right now. So I'm going to go ahead and discard this item, which we already used at the beginning of the scene, strategic plan. And when you discard something, it doesn't get actually removed. It just goes into storage, which is actually up here. We could potentially select it later on when the game permits. Right now, the Book of Water is going to become another item that we can use during this scene, which is really cool. I might do this because I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't end up with me drowning. Now what I'm going to do to try to maximize my hand here is I've got this card called Smarty, so I'm going to use this one. I can actually put this in an active slot. It's not a rapid action card, doesn't have the white up top, and I can discard this right now, and if I discard this Smarty card, I get to draw an equal amount of yellow cards currently in my active area, which is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to discard this card away, allowing me to draw 3 cards right now. So we're going to get more contact. That's what we want to see. See, now we have the ability to read another book. We'll pull another one. We got the dark side. This is going to be good for us to be able to make an attack against the librarian at some point. And we even have an instant here, exchanging a number of your powers for wrath, which is great. So this is a great card to get when we are trying to eliminate the AI from the librarian. Fantastic. And then last card, Perfect. More contact. Exactly what we wanted to see. And we have the ability to force buy a card. If we want to pay 6 contact, we get to that particular situation. If it's in the active area, we can force buy cards during the middle of the scenario, meaning I can spend all this ether that's sitting here. So that was actually a really good pull. Now let's figure out how we can make use of this to the best of our ability. So after my hand draw there, you're probably getting excited saying, wow, we can really read a lot of books right now, spending a lot of contact. Well, yes and no. As soon as you read a book, the actual scene card states, as we saw at the beginning of the video, that we have to roll the fate die. And at that particular time, if this fate die lands a 1, 2, or 3, then we are blocked from this location, meaning a universal marker will sit on top of this and we can no longer interact there to read books. We have to go elsewhere. The costs elsewhere in this scene are 4, 4, and 6. So there are 4 locations to read a book. One costs 3, one costs 4, another one costs 4, another one costs 6. Once 3 of them are blocked, no more of them can be blocked and only 1 remains. So it's a little bit of a strategy there as to, do you go pay for the heavy 6 right away and get blocked from it and then kind of work your way down? Or do you start with the cheapest one and hope you can kind of, get lucky enough to be able to reuse that and hash that out a few times over and over before you finally get blocked out? We're going to find out right now whether I can do this again right this second by rolling this fate die. So really hope for me that I don't land a 1, 2, or 3, because if I do, we can't use it anymore. We got super lucky. We got a 6, so we can interact with this thing again, which is fantastic because that's not going to increase the cost of things for me. So I'm going to go ahead right away and use 2 rapid action cards for 3 contact, throwing them in my discard pile. We're going to go back to those books and we're going to pick another one. So as we choose our second book during this turn, I'm going to leave my fate up to the fate die itself. I'm going to roll this die. Of course, there's 7 cards here, so it's a 6-sided die. So obviously the last book can't be chosen, but going forward after this, every one of them will be an option. I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm just doing this for the fun of the playthrough. This is not how it actually is done. You can literally choose the book that you want to choose to read and flip it over, and you'll probably have reasons for doing so based on what you see in the map, the writings, what's potentially on the front cover of these books, or what you're just most interested in seeing. But I'm going to roll this because it throws a whole curveball into this playthrough, which I just love. So let's go ahead, roll the die, and see what the fate has for us. 3. Look at this. I feel like it's trying to kill me here. So we're going for Spooky Night. Let's see what happens. And it says, it is better not to read it. Well, that does not sound good. This card is active till the end of the scene. From now on, all librarians' actions are question marks. Okay, so that makes life really hard for me because I don't know what it's going to do. And then we replace his current action to a question mark also. Well, we don't have to do that because it's already set as a question mark. But now going forward, we're just using those turn counters to denote time as we remove them throughout the turns. But no matter what's displayed on those turn counter cards, we are always going to be setting this thing to a random for the librarian. So that is certainly going to change things up on us. We are obviously at the mercy of this fate die at this point. Now the big question is, are we going to get blocked at this location? Can we get lucky enough to not get blocked again? Let's see. Oh, and now we are officially blocked off. So we are no longer able to read books from this area over here. We're going to have to find either the other read a book symbols, which are over here for 4, here for 4, or this one over here for 6. So I totally think we should try to go back into hiding again to avoid the random AI that's going to trigger for the librarian. So we'll probably use this one right here to do that one movement to get back into that sheltered area. So I'll just discard it for now. We'll move my character in a second. The dark side and rapid progression, I want to keep these for later on. So I'm going to slot both of them into active slots. We'll use them later. And we're going to try to work ourselves up to moving towards another area to read a book. But this is allowing me to basically thin out my hand size so I can draw up 4 cards going into the next turn. And in order to keep us out of harm's way, I spent the 1 false to move me back into this hidden space inside the library. So thankfully, because we are inside that sheltered area in the hidden space, the librarian is not going to activate. It will stay with its marker on the question mark because of this card that we pulled out when we were reading books, forcing us to always have a random action with the AI. But the turn counter deck will, of course, tick away on us. And any abilities that show up at the bottom also trigger. So again, we're not going to be moving this tracker to the 1 position as it's stuck on the question mark thanks to this card. And the ability down below says entity's action range is increased by 1. That's not good at all. So it's the beginning of my next turn. I'm going to go ahead and reactivate this false power token. I am going to actually discard this. You might be thinking I'm crazy, but I am going to get rid of it because I really want to find contact, and I'm only within 2 spaces away from getting to a book, so I want to risk this to get more contact in my hand. Hopefully, I hope that works out. Could be a little bit sketch, but I do have enough variation down here with resources. I shouldn't need this single one. It's kind of clogging up my hand. So we're going to go ahead now and pull some more. So we got some Wrath here. We got some nice. We got this one here, the Restoring, so only in a range 1 from water, and it's an instant to gain more power. Now this is a gaining of a false power. So remember, we have the ability with the Book of Water that we talked about earlier to spend 2, and we could actually put a pool of water down. And when we do that, we would be able to actually use this because we'd be inside of a range of 0, or 1, I should say, from the water, and we could gain a power. So that's one way we could kind of merge our item cards with what's going on in our hand as well. So that's pretty awesome. Second card here, we got a Memory of card. Next card up is Peeving. Wow, we're getting lots of Wrath, but this is huge too because it says discard. You may use your contact as Wrath. So I guess in a way we can actually put some injuries on this guy if we weren't in the hiding spot to avoid it from activating, but we're not getting a lot of the contact we need. We got an absolutely insane amount of Wrath though. So I think it's time to now get rid of this flip down card in my active area because it's just not doing anything for me. I don't see myself using contact anytime soon to flip it back up. So this dodge, I'm just going to chuck, and we're going to try to do our best to avoid the attacks from this entity the best we can going forward. Now I just caught an error that I made. I realized I put a rapid card action inside of my active area, which I cannot do. So what I'm going to do is take the last card that I drew into my hand, which is this one here, and I'm going to take my chess deck here. I'm going to shuffle this back in, and that will square that away. I'm going to take this card out of my active area, and it's going to sit in my hand instead because it shouldn't have been in there. And that just happened from the last turn, so it doesn't change or impact anything, and everything kind of at this point is a moot point, except for the fact of mentioning it here so that there's no confusion. So we've got these 3 in the active area right now, and I have currently 3 cards that I could potentially dump, or actually 4, into the active area from my hand alone. So here are the 4 active cards I was talking about that are part of my hand currently. I could do a number of different things here. I could even try to make use of this Peeving by putting this in an active slot along with another red card to discard this card and gain and drop more cards, which I'm very tempted to do actually. And then there's also the Restoring to drop the water down, and we were able to gain another one of these powers here for false. There's a number of different things I want to do, but I also need to read books to progress through this chapter. So I could use a lot of these resources to inflict the number of injuries I need in order to wipe out the librarian's activation on this coming turn, meaning I don't have to hide again. I can get out there and interact with a book while I have the chance to. So I think that might be more important than sitting in the shadows and hiding, being that I got 0 contact or very little amount. I have 2 resources for contact here, and I have 2 in my active area that I could spend for a total of 4. So if I get to one of those read a book contact 4 areas on the map, so I'm going to go ahead and place Memory of in an active slot, and then I'm going to place Peeving in an active slot. I'm going to activate Peeving at the very bottom for the discard to draw the number of cards that are red in this area. Peeving gets discarded, so this will get tossed, but I'm still in a safe zone in terms of having 6 resources to do the 2 wounds I need to get rid of the AI, currently with 1 here and 5 red in my hand. So this just allows me the ability to get some more cards too. Look at that, more Wrath, 2 more Wrath, and then hey, you got some contact. That's perfect. So it worked a little bit to my advantage there, but not as much as I would have liked. As much as I'd really love to be able to go ahead and use this Restoring card right here in order to gain that instant power by using it as a rapid action card, but I have to be in range 1 of a pool of water, which means I'd have to go ahead and place water using the Book of Water. That's just too much to try to accomplish right now when I'm trying to read a book and also try to attack an entity to stop it from activating on its turn and hitting me back. So what I'm going to do, and this is going to be very interesting, is I'm going to go ahead and actually spend very long hands from my active area for the 2 resources. So this is going to go in the discard pile. This will let me move twice. I'm going to go 1 and then right within range 1 of the entity, but in the space where I can actually use 4 contact to read a book. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the Restoring card, even though I really don't want to, for the resources in the top, as well as the rapid progress I had in my active area for a total of 4 resources to read one of these books and hope that I can find one of the gates I'm looking for. So here are the remaining 6 books to choose from. Again, I really want to use the Fate die. Don't have to do this normally, but I just love doing it during this playthrough to see what Fate has for us. a 6. So we got this one right here. It says, finally, for real. All right, so let's see what it has in store for us here. This card is active till the end of the scene. When you find the second half of the door in another book, you will go through the gates at the end of the 8th round. Oh, so we're trying to find a way out of here by the 8th round. Now, again, we're playing and we have 11 rounds because we're playing solo, so we can just basically edit that to be 11 rounds, but that's awesome. We found one of the 2 cards that we need, or 2 books that we need, one of them to be successful in completing this particular scene. So that's good news. Finally, we got one. Awesome. So we found the first part or first book that we need to get the gate to get out of this scene and hopefully find the key that we're looking for. But we also are going to be running into the librarian's turn next, which is completely random. So we need to stop that. So I'm going to go ahead and spend 6 wrath from my hand, and we know we can spend 3 wrath. For every 3 wrath we spend, we inflict a wound, which is a marker in red that goes on the character that we're hitting or entity. So if we do 2, which matches 2 times 1, because I'm 1 player, so if we get 2 markers on there for a total of 6 wrath resources, then we can actually go ahead and remove the action marker, and the librarian doesn't get a turn, and we're essentially misleading it is what it's called. So we're close enough to basically maybe we're throwing something in the opposite direction. We're doing something to mislead the entity away from us. And it's actually pretty awesome so far that we've been able to use that hidden area up here plus mislead it. It hasn't moved at all. We've been really messing with it. So this is what I have remaining. 2 cards in hand. This one is for false or contact. This is useful in terms of trying to interact with a book. Don't really need much wrath right now, so not so useful. I'll probably discard this at the beginning of my next turn. Haven't used this at all, but that's okay. Sometimes you just don't. I'm really keeping this combination for a particular situation down the line where maybe I can't stop the librarian and it wants to come after me, and I can just use my ghost ability for 3 false to get back to that space to be safe again. So as we know, the librarian is not activating during this turn, which is fantastic, but we do know that it will continue to go back to that random marker space every single turn going forward, and we'll just drop another turn counter card off the top of the deck, which doesn't change anything and actually removes any ability that I had, which I couldn't have used anyway based on my fantastic combat or misleading of it. And yeah, we're going to move right into the next turn. So going into the next turn, I'm happily going to discard this Wrath card as I don't plan to attack it this time around. I'm really gunning to get another book. So here we go. Hope for the best. First one off the top is 1 contact, along with some other stuff to use as well. Come on, contact, where are you? Analysis. So this one says for 4 false from now on, entities suffer 1 additional. So that actually is good. If I did want to attack it now, I could potentially use that to my advantage. So that's nice to know. Here's another. Oh my goodness, I'm just slowly creeping up to the 4 contact that I need. This is brutal. I really hope this last one is a contact. No, it's not, and it actually depletes my deck, but again, you don't have to deal with any of this until you have to draw a card from your chest, and then this activates. So for now, I'm safe, but I will be suffering some wounds, or I can ditch an ether instead, or I can remove 2 powers. So I'll probably be ditching. I might even ditch an ether just because of how many I have. But that's it. It doesn't look like I have enough contact. I'm probably going to have to force myself into reshuffling the deck and dealing with that in order to draw more cards. I might even have to burn some cards to draw cards to find contact as fast as possible. All right, so we're going to put analysis in the active area. Quite happy about that. I'm not going to mark it for its passive ability, even though I have enough to spend to do it, because I need the contact in order to read the book. And again, I really want to go ahead and draw a card from here. So in order to force myself to be able to draw a card, I'm going to have to ditch some stuff in order to do that. Now, the only way to draw a card that I currently have available to me is to get rid of 3 of 1 type. So what I could do is I could take this card and I could take, say, for instance, the stairs and ditch this. This is 3. This would allow me to draw a single card, and not exactly the best, but it's something. I don't know if it's the greatest use, to be honest, but now we have to deal with the fact we can't draw this chess card. So what I'm going to do is not take the pain. I can discard 1 ether, or I can remove 2 cards, and I'm definitely just going to discard an ether, even though I really don't want to do that. And this is going to allow me to go ahead and grab this whole deck, and I can reshuffle this, and we'll be able to put this back in the chest spot and draw a single card. And just like that, the deck is fully shuffled, and we're going to draw that top card off and see if we get lucky. Oh, we barely do. We barely do. We got it just enough. And I still have enough movement to enact my ghost ability. So this is perfect. So we're going to spend 4 right now. All 4 of these are all rapid action cards. We're going to burn all of them in order to read another book. Cross our fingers that we can find the one that we need. So we are now down to just these 5 books. Let's go ahead and grab the fate die as we always do. 1 through 5. If we roll a 6, we re-roll. We got a 3, that is Palace of 1,000 Stairs, and we're going to flip this book over. This card is active till the end of the scene. From now on, moving on the spaces with staircases is free. Well, we never had anything that told us that moving on to staircases during this adventure cost anything, so that does nothing for us. But if something bad does happen, maybe there's a book in here that actually causes something bad to happen with stairs, now we know that will not affect us, but it's still not what we were looking for, so we're going to have to continue reading books. And for some crazy reason, every time I roll this die, it hits one of the major title books, never seeming to hit the other books or the another books, which I find very odd. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and run away as fast as humanly possible so this thing can't hurt us. So we're going to use Analysis, the active card in my active slot, for 2 resources of yellow, and that's going to allow me to go 1-2 back into this hidden spot to no longer be bothered by the librarians. We're playing chicken with them just a little bit, as much as we can anyway, to our advantage, and I'm going to end my turn right there. I have no active cards and no cards in hand, so hopefully the next draw is a big one for contact and we can get back to reading another book if we get lucky. So because we're in that spot, the librarian will not activate again. We'll get to go ahead and move the turn counter deck 1 more. So just before we go ahead and remove the next turn counter card from our time deck, we're going to roll the fate die for this read a book action, because remember, 1, 2, or 3 is going to block us from using that space again. Here we go. We got ourselves a 4. That's super lucky, so we can still go ahead and use that space, which is nice. We do technically still, within range 2 spaces, go to either of these ones that cost a 4 to read a book. So we're in a good spot. We can kind of go back and forth, and hope to make it through. The turn counter card will remove another one, and we know that it always sets itself at a random, which is fun. We haven't seen it happen yet because I've been doing a good job of mitigating that, but we'll see how long that lasts. Okay, so we want to see contact. Let's see lots and lots of contact here. There we go. Rapid progression comes back around for 2. Next up, we got peeving for 2. Wrath. We've got some more wrath here, so if we want to make attacks, that's definitely an option. We got some stairs. Come on, contact. No, we didn't get what we needed, but we definitely got enough combat, or wrath, I should say, to be able to inflict some damage on the entity, or we might have to discard some cards, or try to. Maybe with peeving, we can actually set ourselves up quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dark side card in my active area. I'm going to place peeving in my active area. And actually, I did this again. Dark side always catches me every time. I try to play this as a rapid action card. I don't know why. It almost looks like the white belongs within the artwork. I really hope that might change in the final version, because sometimes those cards trick you. But I could put peeving in here in order to discard peeving, which seems like kind of a waste, but it would allow me to draw another card. So I'm going to do it. It's not the best use of this card, but I'm going to go ahead and do it so I can discard it, draw 1 card. And I just got regrouping, which is more of the same. It's not what I wanted, not what I wanted at all. Now, this is not going to help me either, because I can't stage any more red cards, so that's no good. So with that in mind, we are a little bit in a tight spot here for getting the contact we need to read the next book. So I'm going to go ahead at this point, and I'm going to discard the dark side card for the 3 resources of red in order to draw a card. So let's see what we get. Nice, so we got 1 contact. Now what does it say? For 2 false, you may use contact. Now that's not what's going to help us at all, but I can use it for the 1 contact up top. So now I have a total of 3, which is not bad. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these 2 in order to draw another card. So I'm spending 4. This is not the most effective use of cards, but hopefully it works out for me. No, it doesn't. It's too bad. So what I'm going to do going into this is actually going to be kind of a burned turn for me, but I'm going to stage a bunch of cards in the active area. So I'm going to put the stairs in here, I'm going to put rapid progression in here, and I'm going to put searcher in here, so that they're all kind of ready for potentially going after a book later on, leaving me with only this card left in my hand. I don't even know if I need this, so I'll probably discard it at the beginning of my next turn. I'm going to call that turn a complete wash, and we're going to stop right there, but we are in the safety of our hidden area, so we won't take any attacks. attacks. So no attacks from the librarian. We tick away another turn counter card as time continues to slip on us. This will remain in the question mark spot and we go back to our next turn. I am definitely going to go ahead and take this rapid action card. I'm going to toss it. I want to have more cards in my hand, hoping for as much contact as possible. That is not what I'm looking for. Come on. All right, you may use contact as wrath. That's also not what I'm looking for. Come on, contact, where are you? You're hiding on me. You're not coming out. Oh my goodness, we're definitely not getting what we need here. Wow, okay, so we're gonna have another turn like we did last time where we're gonna have to make something work. Now, what I'm noticing though is, if I wanted to, I could do something different here now that I kind of have another burn turn in terms of being productive. What I could do is I have the ability to discard 5 cards of the same color to get a power of that color. So if I toss this, this, and the stairs, I could stay exactly where I am and I'd actually gain a power token like this. Not bad, because that would actually work my way up to be able to activate my ghost ability all the time in the future. So it could be a good time to do that, seeing as this might be a turn where something doesn't pan out for me. Using the bottom card of Rapid Progression has nothing, this has nothing for me right now, and the stairs has nothing. So this might be the perfect time for that. The only other option I have here is to discard 7 cards and or powers of one color to get an ether, but I've already got enough ether. So I really think I'm just going to go ahead here and I'm going to burn all of my... Yeah, I think I'm just going to burn all 5 of those cards so that I can gain myself another power token. So it is kind of a wash of a turn, but I'm happy with it. We progressed halfway to getting what we need, at least with the gates and things like that already. So we're doing okay, I think. And I just gained another power token to use in the future. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take memory of and slot this in like this. And now I've got nothing in my hand, so I'm more than ready for the next turn. Again, the enemy doesn't get to activate, so we get to go to the next turn quite quickly. So no turn for the librarian again. He's still just sitting there in the library going, where the heck is that noise coming from? I know somebody's here, but they haven't shown themselves. Well, that's because I've continued to hide like a rat in the wall. And I'm going to remove this next time counter card. It's at the bottom right now, additional movement roll before entity's action. So that's pretty nasty if it happens to activate. So let's head back to my turn. We'll draw cards up and hope to find contact. All right, I have no cards in hand, so nothing to discard. I can drop to a full 5 cards. Here we go. So we got not the card we want there. Hey, there we go. We finally got the contact we need. Now it's going to probably just start coming in like crazy. There we go. There's the 3rd card, 4th card, and come on, give me a big one. Yes, the pocket ladder. Perfect. So this could be a turn we could potentially maybe get 2 books out of it. And this could work really well with the fact they got that power token, could help me kind of get back into hiding again and cowering away in the closet. So that's pretty awesome. So what we're going to do is we are going to move in order to get to the space we need to be at. We are going to interact with one of the books at least and then go from there. So we got exactly the movement we need with the power tokens that I have. 2 of these power tokens I will flip over to the deactivated side, and just like that, we're able to move out of hiding and back to the read a book option, where I'm going to go ahead and use the pocket ladder along with... let's go ahead and use the pocket ladder and the searcher, which is an active card in my area here for a total of 4 green resource. And that is going to allow me to read a book. Let's see if we get lucky and find that final part of the gate. We're down to the final 4 books, so we're going to roll a die to find out what fate has for us. We got a 2. Interesting. This is going to be the first another book that we've seen, actually. So we'll flip this thing over. Interesting. Supposedly there is some kind of a hint on the 3rd stair of basement. Okay. Remove this card to the waste bag. The door are somewhere close. Well, that's interesting. So let's actually head back to the basement, which I guess would be the cellar, to see if there's something there that I missed. You have got to be kidding me. That is extremely cool. I didn't even see that the first time that I revealed it. There is a 224 on the 3rd step of the cellar staircase. Did you guys see that? So even though this is an extremely cool find, this actually relates to a card that we found earlier a different way. Action 224 gave us this stairs card, if you remember, earlier on in this video. So we already have this actually sitting in our discard pile right now, but it is cool to find that there are multiple ways to actually end up locating particular secret cards or tiles. So now we need to roll a fate die to determine whether or not I can read another book there in the future. And it looks like I can, so I'm super lucky that I can continue to try to look through books there. And you know what? I'm gonna do it right now. There's no reason not to. I have the ability to, so I'm gonna spend these ones right here. So that's gonna be for 4 in order to take a look at the next book. Now, what I might do instead is, I just realized I want to keep a couple of those the 2 cards I showed you in there I want to keep actually, which are these 2, because of the movement ability, which I no longer have. And I want to get out of here later. I don't want to get hit. So instead I'll use rapid progression from my active area, which has 2 resources on it, combined with this rapid action card, which has 2 resources on it. And that's going to give me a total of 4, 1 from hand, 1 from the active space. And what I have left over, just so you guys are aware, is this, which is going to help me to get back to my secret hiding spot, or use the ghost ability to get anywhere else in this level I want to go. So I'm able to interact and read another book at this point in time. So I wonder what will happen on this roll of the fate die. We got a 1, so that's another book. Let's go ahead and reveal it. Ooh, you can roll the fate die. 1 to a 2, additional instant action roll for the librarian. That sounds terrifying. 3 to a 4, we can flip 1 active card. Okay, so that's not good because my current active cards are face up, so we'll be flipping it face down. Or a 5 to 6, take 1 contact power or a fate power, then return this card to the book pool. Ooh, that's tough. So do I push my luck here and try to gain some extra power? There's a chance I could get attacked. I may have to flip a card. Flipping a card is not that bad, so really the worst case scenario is the 1 to 2. Might be worth the chance. Let's do it. And it says you can, so we don't have to, but I'm going to do it, right? Because it's fun. And that is not what we wanted to see. So for the first time in this playthrough, I have pushed my luck too far, and the librarian is going to activate. So let's go ahead and roll the entity's action die now to find out what it's going to do to me. And it is a random one, so here we go. We landed a 4 on that roll, so we're going to go over to the librarian's card and find out what kind of pain is coming my way. So for this instant action roll that happens immediately right now in the middle of my turn, it's actually going to activate each character flips 1 card and suffers a pain. So that's pretty straightforward. So my memory of card that's sitting in my active space is going to flip over, which is unfortunate, and I'm going to take a pain, bringing me up to a total of 3. So now it's time to determine if we're blocked there. So we're going to roll our fate die. Please, hopefully not. We got a 4, we're still good. So we can still go to that location right beside him, so we can still mess around with him a little bit. And what we're going to do at the end of my turn here now, just before he activates, is I'm going to go ahead and keep one of my rapid action cards that has contact on it, as well as 1 of everything. So it's a really useful kind of ore card. I'll keep that. I'm going to spend these 2 for the false in order to move. I'm going to move myself right back to where I came from to hide again from his wrath. So nothing will be happening for the librarian on its activation. A time counter card will be removed. We must be getting down to the final ones here. So it's getting a little bit nerve-wracking here. How many we have left in this pile? It's getting pretty thin. I think we have 1, 2, 3 left. So we really need to find this final gate. So going into our turn, we have 1 card which is flipped face down thanks to the librarian screwing around with us. We're going to reactivate our false tokens, power tokens, which are super useful for movement, which is great for getting out in and out of hiding for these books. We've got 1 card in hand which has a contact, and we're looking for more. We can drop to 4. There's the restoring card. That's fantastic, giving us 3. A dodge, not exactly what we want. We want more contact. Very long hands, and hopefully another contact. No! So we're just short, but we're going to be able to potentially discard some cards and maybe be able to get a contact that way. I'm going to use dodge and very long hands combined together for 4 resources, which I only needed 3 anyway to draw on another card. Hoping to find green. We got it, thank goodness. Okay, so now we have the 4 we need, and we just need to get movement. This is actually perfect what I have right here, because I can jump out for 2 using these 2. I can use 4 to actually interact with a book, and then I can use these last 2 to jump back into hiding. So I'm using my 2 power tokens and deactivating both of them in order to move back to this book again. And from here, I'm going to use the 4 resources for contact in order to look at a book and hope that I find the last one that I need. So there's only 2 more books to read here, so 1 to 3 for Silent Night and 4 to 6 for another book. Wow, it even landed on the book itself. It's like it was saying something might be there. Yes, we got it. And I guess it was a 50-50 pull either way. So that worked out fantastic. It says this card is active till the end of the scene. When you finally find the second half of the door, which I have, you will go through the gates at the end of the 8th round, which means we automatically will be successful because the goal of this card says to go through the gates. Now what's cool is it says by the 8th round, but remember we're playing solo, so we get 11 rounds. So I have some rounds still to toy around in this area as much as I'd like before I get pulled out. In other words, I could potentially try to trigger that Book of Water to see what happens. I'm really interested in that. Now we still need to go ahead and roll the fate die to see if we block ourselves from being able to read a book again in the future. And we don't. We still have the availability to read the Silent Night book if we want to. I'm not going to bother because I've gotten everything that I need. I'm going to focus more so on maybe trying to get that water down and placed. But for now, we need to get out of here before the librarian attacks us again. So I'm going to use the last 2 cards that I have available in my hand here for their 2 yellow resources in order to get myself back into hiding and end my turn. I love that the librarian had no idea what we were doing the entire time. We just worked our way around him. It was perfect. So we're going to go ahead and ditch another turn counter card. We only have 2 more remaining, and we're gonna go back to our turn and see if we can try to use this Book of Water. Okay, here's hoping for good things. Now our deck is getting a little low here, so we're going to run into a situation where I'll have to burn some ether or take a pain. I did get some contact, so that's good. We're going to be able to reactivate this, of course, going into the next turn. But right now I need to pull more cards. I don't have to. I could stop here because you can pull up to 5 in your hand, but I want to get more. So I'm going to have to either suffer a pain or discard an ether. I really want to be able to deck build at the end of this. So I'm going to choose, because we're leaving a scene that has a key involved, I'm going to go ahead and take the pain because I think we'll be able to go back to the awakening space in the world map where our wounds will be wiped away. So I'm going to play it a little bit risky, take the actual pain, and we're going to move on with now shuffling this discarded deck and drawing the final 3 cards in our hand. So last 3 cards to go. We got regrouping. We got 1 contact there. And we're looking for as much context as possible because we need to be able to not only put the water down, but then also get into the water. So we have enough right now with the 5 we have right here to potentially do something. Let me just double check that we don't have the ability to draw any more cards using something here. So we could potentially use regrouping to draw more cards, but it's not going to help us at this moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spend 2 of these cards, which are for 4 Wrath, in order to discard them, in order to draw another card. Okay, that was not what we wanted. We got a dodge. And so currently, in order to put water down, we just need to spend 2 contacts. So I'm going to spend 2 contact using the Book of Water right here. And it says when we spend 2 contact, put a water token on the space you stand on. So I'm going to put a water token literally inside the space of that hidden area. And then the next thing we're going to try to do later on is get 4 contact to actually dive into it and explore what 880 has for us, which is what I'm really, really interested to see. So right now in my hand left over, I have this. So I need 2 more green contact. So what I could do is I could keep one of these and I could ditch it for these 3 false in order to hope that I get a contact that's 2 and get lucky enough to go. Oh my goodness, that works perfect. So there we go. We got the 3 that we need, but we're just 1 shy. So close. I thought we needed 3 for a second there, but we actually needed 4. So I got a little too excited, but the good news is I can just put this in my active area and we'll draw cards up next turn and hope to get that last one. Now I do realize that I could technically burn this, this, and this in order to try to get a card that comes off the top that's another double, but the chance of another double pretty slim, so I'm just going to hold on to what I have. So no activation for the librarian as I'm in hiding still, and now we're really getting down. The turns are slipping away from us. We only have 1 left to pull this off. I really hope that I can do this to hopefully show you guys what's there, and I've never seen it myself, so I'm just as curious. So here we go. Wish me luck with these cards. Smarty, that's not what we want, but it does allow us to draw up extra cards, so that's good. That's not what we want to see. This is also not what we want to see. And oh my goodness, we just got it on the very, very last one. That's crazy, although we could have tried to discard cards to draw it anyway. So this works pretty good. We're going to go ahead and use Rapid Progression and these 2 cards together for all the resources. That is a total of 4. With the water space on our tile, we are now going to dive in. So we're diving into this pool of water thanks to the Book of Water for $8.80, which we're going to go check right now to see what it ends up being. Oh my goodness, this is going to be quite exciting. What do we get? Wow, we found ourselves a Sunken Room. So this is the room that we just found, which is pretty crazy. There's a lot going on here. We've got an individual creepily wading through the water. We got a person looking at an eye being grabbed by hands through a wall. We've got writing here that there's something in the water. It's a sunken room. There's a gigantic eel. There's all kinds of what appears to be sea life down below. Who knows for what reason. There's something in the water, and it appears there's actually quite a few things in this water. But if we're in here for too long, we actually, if we're not spending enough contact, we actually suffer pain for being in here. There is a starting position, so you can actually see this takes you out of the scene you're in and puts you into almost a secondary scene there, which is pretty cool. So you can see also in the bottom right hand corner, it says if we use 1 false here, we can place the character in this main location on any space with water. So basically it means take the character that spent that false and then move them back to the main location where there's water. Because we have the Book of Water, we can technically drop water all over the place. So it just says to put you back. So it's kind of, I guess what it was supposed to be used for, or could have been used for strategy wise, is if we hadn't have found the hole in the wall to hide in, or we didn't have the ghost ability and we were someone that moved slower, for instance, this would have been a way to basically drop the Book of Water, use it to drop water in one place of this particular scene, and then drop water in another place on the opposite side of the scene, and use the Sunken Room as a way to traverse through it quickly. So that's really cool because it allows for other characters to gain that same type of movement as the ghost ability has, and a way to avoid the entity that's lurking around the library. So that's pretty cool. Plus, I took a look through my wisdom card and signs trying to see if any of the remaining ones actually showed up on this Sunken Room, and none of them do. So these ones I just weren't able to find in this particular scene. There's only 3 left in this prototype, but I didn't see anything in here that we could reveal. So going back to my hand of cards right now, this is what I have. Ironically, it's almost perfect. So I'm able to go ahead and use Smarty to move 2, because I don't really want to be in here anymore, because I'll take pain if I'm in here. And then I can use 1 false with my other card to take me out of here. So I was able to explore to see what it is, but I can safely get out without taking the pain. And that worked out perfectly for me because it brings me right back to the surface again in the scene. I'm safe. I won't take any pain. I still currently have 1 card left on me, which I'm really not going to be able to use. So that is pretty much going to be the end of my turn. I can put this in an active slot just for the time being. And we'll now go ahead and grab the last turn counter card, knowing full well that the entity cannot activate, being that I'm in hiding. So there are no more turn counter cards, and this is where this scene comes to a close. Thanks to the ability to grab the 2 cards from the books in the library that we found, we were able to go through the gates successfully. And as it mentions on the library card, we gain a key for winning this scenario. So I've got myself a nice key right here that I'm going to add to my collection for succeeding at the library. So in terms of cleanup for our player board, there is none because I have no cards left in my hand. Anything that's sitting in the active area stays in the active area, and the discard pile stays as a discard pile. The only thing that would happen here is if I had cards in my hand, they would get shuffled back into my chest area. And just like that, we're back at the world map in the awakening position. Underneath of it, it says, go ahead and change items as you wish. You'll see the Book of Waters here, so we can choose to switch up anything we want. I can even put the train ticket here, which could help us traverse ourselves over to the mill faster. So that's something that might be worth talking about if we want to continue the journey or the playthrough forward to go to the mill. I think putting the train ticket in those 3 one of those 3 positions would be a smart strategic decision. Right now, we also get to heal all of our damage. This is another reason why I didn't mind the damage at the very end there. So that's going to include the total of 4 pain that I had when I left that last scene is all removed, which is fantastic. And then on top of that, we can actually reshuffle the chest, and then we can change mass if we so choose. So I'll be able to take all the discarded cards and I can reshuffle the chest back together, giving us kind of full strength as we move towards the next scene. And that is going to conclude part number 4 of Etherfields in the library, the scene we just came out of, giving us another key. And what I want to know from you guys now in the comments below, as well as in the top right hand corner of the video, there's an eye there where I put a vote. Do you want us to move into the mill? Do you want to head there? Because I'm intrigued by what could potentially be there. What's also cool about the mill is that it is located in the swamp, so it'll be a very different location, and I'm interested to see how many of you would like to see that, as there was as equal interest in seeing the library as there was the mill when I proposed that vote earlier on in this playthrough. So now I'm gunning to see, do you want to see more of Etherfields? Let me know in the comments below, let me know in the voting, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.